What's up everybody, my name is MrHurriicane and this is my Madden 17 drafting guide video. This is the follow-up to my scouting video that I made around a month ago. It is linked in the description below and part of this playlist, which is all about team building in these football games that I play so much. As I make this video right now, the actual NFL draft is only a couple days away. It's one of our favorite times of the season being football fans, and it's also one of the most fun things to do in Madden in franchise mode. And here are clips I used in the scouting video of me drafting various players and seeing what they do on the field. It's been my favorite part of doing the content that I do, bringing in my own players, and then seeing those players become the difference makers our team needed. So this is the follow-up now. If you want to see the tips on scouting and how to best manage your points and whatnot, that's what that video is for. To me, scouting is all about giving yourself as many options as possible, and then drafting is all about how you use the strategy of using those options to get the best draft class possible, to fill your needs, and to get those impact players. Now, I'm sure there are plenty who are better at drafting than I, but I do get good results in my franchises, and I tend to give myself a chance to draft some pretty good players no matter where we are in the draft, whether it's early on or my favorite, more in the 3rd and 4th round areas. So here are some of the players that I scouted back in the scouting video, and I treated this example here pretty seriously because it had to be for it to make sense. So I used the Carolina Panthers in this example, and I scouted based on their needs, created a watch list, and then a plan of attack basically for this draft. And here are the 60 players that made it to my watch list. I was looking for secondary help, playmakers on offense, whether it was receiver or running back with Jonathan Stewart getting up there in age. Then I simmed through free agency and whatnot, and this roster was pretty bare, like 2 cornerbacks on the roster, like no defensive ends. So I went through and I found the needs of the team. It was basically everything but quarterback, defensive tackle, and linebacker. I was targeting running back, receiver, tackle, guard, edge rusher, cornerback, and safety. Now, how you prioritize those positions is going to be dependent on you and your team, the state that they're in. And what I'm going to do is let you into my thought process for every pick that I made in this draft. And we had the number 4 overall selection, so not many players were off the board. The top end and running back were gone. Now, you do have the option to trade down in most cases. Teams will offer a variety of combinations here. Many of these end up featuring future picks, so when you are looking at these trade offers, keep in mind the year that these picks are in. If there isn't a player that you love at the spot, then trading down usually makes sense if the price is right. If there's a player you really want and he's like the 3rd best at his position, then maybe you trade down a handful of slots to where he's still going to be available. So I went and looked at the top players that fit what we needed in this class, and there was a top receiver, a top cornerback. But what I look at is how many cornerbacks are there that can fill the need that I have, which in this case was a starting cornerback for the Panthers, one that can excel in zone coverage, some press, that's kind of their scheme. I also look at the caliber of player. If there's like a very special cornerback with 4.4 speed and like B+ man, B+ zone, that's going to stand out even if there are other good cornerbacks. But in this situation, I saw a few good corners available while there was one elite tier pass rusher. There was a late round rusher I liked here, Leroy Rankin, with a B+ power move and great speed. However, I knew his skill set wasn't going to be complete and he was ranked pretty low. There was Asher Nande here at cornerback. I didn't finish scouting him, but that B+ man coverage was very enticing. Ultimately here, the choice was simple. You take the pass rusher in this spot, and Kamal Hope had very good speed. He is a finesse rusher who can also get to the quarterback using power moves, 83 block shedding. So what I took here was a very complete player, number 6 in true talent, and drafted at number 4 overall. I wanted a combination here of a starting pass rusher and a starting cornerback, and it would work out better if I took the pass rusher first than vice versa. Now here's an example of trading up. If there's a player that you really want that you don't think is going to be available at your pick, go into the manual trading here, and what you'll see is your progress toward getting the interest necessary to make this trade happen. And as you can see here, I'm trying to trade up quite a bit, so the Jaguars would want a lot for us to get that number 5 overall selection. I couldn't do it, but I didn't want it. It's just for example here, and sometimes you'll have to give up a lot more than you want depending on the team. But basically, I had to pick between that edge rusher or the cornerback Youngblood. I couldn't get both of them. I took the rusher first, and then in the second round, looking at my watch list here, I thought that cornerback was another good position to target. There were still running backs I liked later. The offensive linemen weren't all that enticing, no great pass blockers, and you're not going to find many great pass blockers in these drafts. So Leonard Morrison here, while I didn't think he was a top tier corner, still had a good blend of man and zone coverage with enough speed, having run a 4.5 40. He didn't have a fantastic combine, but the skills looked solid enough when put together. I debated an offensive lineman in this spot, but I thought that the cornerback was a better player and a bigger need at the moment. So I selected Leonard Morrison and was pleasantly surprised here to see superstar development for a 91 speed corner that had 85 man coverage and 81 zone with 80 press. So he fits the Panthers scheme here as far as a zone corner goes. I think he does have enough size, but he also has the flexibility to play man and is agile, so perhaps even a nickel cornerback if you want him to play that role. The only other cornerback I really liked was Asher Nande, and I hadn't finished scouting him, so I couldn't just not take a cornerback there and risk Nande only having one great trait. So on to the third round now. I addressed defense with my first 2 picks, and I wanted to go to the offensive side this time. No receiver was quite as complete here as Wayne Weston. B+ spec catch, B catching, very important traits. The agility drills weren't very good, but I wanted an outside receiver, and we got a pretty good one here. He was 62 in true talent, pretty good speed, good hands and jumping. He actually compares very similarly to Devin Funchess. He's a little bit faster, a little bit more skilled, and now a little bit younger with a 4-year contract, so it's kind of a lateral move, but it still was us getting a good receiver for Cam Newton. And when it came to our needs still at safety, running back, and offensive line, I thought there were still good players available, whereas there wasn't another receiver quite like Weston. So on to the 4th round here. I took a look here at Reol Garland, and 4.67 40 is not going to cut it for a free safety that plays any sort of single high or cover 3 style defense. Those safeties need range. So Lindsey Spicer was my favorite safety in this class, and he was a 5th round prospect. Now I wanted to address offensive line, and normally these picks don't feel too good because the offensive linemen just aren't all that great in these Madden 17 draft classes. I selected Barry Lucier here. 55 in true talent, good run blocker, Carolina loves to run the football, 76 in pass block, so maybe enough is there to develop, but at least it gave us an offensive lineman that isn't that much worse than the lineman you take in the 1st and 2nd round. The gap is not very big. I wouldn't feel good about taking a 1st round offensive lineman unless they had B or B+ pass blocking, which is very tough to find. In the 5th round, I considered running back, but I wasn't going to prioritize it a ton. Running back isn't that difficult to find in Madden, especially late in the draft. While there was still a 5th round safety with B zone coverage and 4.46 speed that is much more valuable, we selected Lindsey Spicer here, and I actually view him as more of a free safety because of his range and coverage ability. And if I were playing this Panthers franchise, I would then move Trey Boston to strong safety, where I think he fits better as a run stopper and plays down near the box. So I liked this draft a lot to this point. I got a starting corner, starting safety, a Pro Bowl caliber pass rusher, and a pretty good receiver as well. The offensive lineman wasn't bad. So in the 6th round here, it's not a bad idea to see who has fallen. Maybe there are players that you haven't scouted that were supposed to go a lot earlier. A lot of times, defensive tackles and receivers are still available because there are so many good receivers in these classes. Now, one thing that I talk about in drafting a lot on here is that I'm not afraid to reach on a good player. So when a player is like a 7th round prospect, I don't hesitate to take him in the 5th if I think he's the best option there. In this case, I took an undrafted talent in the 6th round because there's no denying 89 power moves. That is an important trait, getting to the quarterback. And even our 1st round selection does not have a pass rushing move in the high 80s like that. Now, Rankin is by no means a complete player, but sometimes being a dominant role player is all that you need. In the final round here, I debated running back, but how can I pass on a receiver like James Rudolph in this spot, where his combine was through the roof, a 4.26 40, amazing agility drills, and the combination of knowing that he can get off press coverage with that release and make spectacular catches? We took the number 12 ranked player in this class at 194 overall. Now, route running and catching need work, but later in the draft, when good combine scores meet a good combination of top 3 traits, this is what you find. You find players that should not be available at this spot. He's even got traits like clutch and fight for yards and keep feet in bounds. There are traits I look for at every position. At wide receiver, it's route running, release, catching, catch in traffic. And seeing at least a few of those, or a couple of those, along with a good combine score, those players give you so much value later in the draft. And even at other positions, like a 5th round safety with B zone coverage was a real no-brainer right there. Easy selection. So here was the first cornerback I passed on early to take the pass rusher, Kamal Hope. 89 speed, 86 zone, 80 man, and superstar development. Then there was Asher Nande, who had 87 speed, 86 man, 80 zone coverage, again superstar development. And the cornerback I ultimately chose was Leonard Morrison. Faster than both of them, 91 speed, 85 man, 81 zone, and superstar development. I think we got the best pass rusher that we could have taken, and ended up luckily with the best cornerback anyway. You can make the argument Youngblood is better, his zone coverage is higher, his speed is a little bit lower, and Carolina does run a lot of zone coverage. But whether you think one is better than the other, the gap is not large, whereas the pass rushing gap, if we didn't take Kamal Hope, was going to be. So my top takeaway and tip for you when it comes to drafting is to know where the impact players lie. If there's a 5th round safety that's an impact player and you have a 1st round safety you also like, probably want to stick to that 5th rounder in a lot of cases. It's all about finding the best combination of how you can attack your needs. I didn't get to fit all my needs in this draft. I did select another receiver in addition to the one I wanted to select, but ultimately the talent was too good to pass up on. So knowing where all those impact players are and when you can wait for certain positions is powerful, but also when it comes to just finding those value picks, it's when the combine grades meet a couple key traits that stand out. In the Bs, even B- sometimes, if a player ran like a 4.6 40, had a good 3 cone, and like a B power move in the 4th or 5th round, that's a slam dunk pick right there. Probably going to be very high in true talent and give you a good value. We saw this very recently in my last Chargers franchise offseason, where I selected 2 front 7 players in the middle of the draft, and both ended up being very highly rated and should be very key pieces for the future of my defense. If you find plenty of players late in the draft that you like, then it's not a bad idea to maybe trade down early on to acquire an extra 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick. Even go into the manual trade and just try to go to a team that wants to trade with you, and maybe instead of, giving up a 2nd round pick, maybe you take their 3 and 4. See what they'll give you. And the same goes for if you want to trade for future selections, like I did in my last draft with my Chargers. I didn't want like the 6th round pick or whatever that I had to make, so I ended up trading for a future, I think, 4th round selection. The way trading for the future works is that if you want to trade up now in the 5th round and take my 5th rounder, it typically costs you your future 4. Happens all the time in the actual NFL draft, and you'll see it on Saturday most likely. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful to those of you who are getting into Madden franchise and maybe you're looking for some help with your draft classes so you can get some better players. The more prepared you are and the better you do when you're scouting to give you options, typically the better your draft classes are going to be if you strategize correctly and you give yourself a chance to take impact players in every round at various positions of need. If there are any other questions, let me know down below in the comments section, and also let me know when it comes to these team building videos on Madden, what else would you like to hear me talk about? I'm looking forward to your suggestions. Thank you all for watching the video. If you found this useful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I do a lot of Madden content over here focused on franchise mode. But that is it for today. I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.